Good morning. Welcome to worship with the Universalist Unitarian Church of Peoria. My name is Regina Stanley, and I have the great privilege of serving as the membership coordinator with this congregation. Our minister, Reverend Jennifer Ennis, is still on her summer break. She is back in town, but not back in the pulpit for a couple of weeks. So we are still in the middle of or towards the end of our summer services. This is a beloved community striving to live its mission of embracing freedom, growing spiritually, loving inclusively, and healing our world. We welcome people of all ethnicities and races, sexual orientation and gender identities, social and economic situations, abilities, and politics. We are unapologetically progressive. We advocate for human rights, and we strive to be good stewards of our earth. Part of living our mission is acknowledging the land that we are on. We are on the land of the Peoria people. They and other nations were here long before the European settlers came down the Illinois River. We honor them for who they are and for who they were. Thank you for joining us in person and online. If you're new, please help us to get to know you. We have name tags at the front welcome desk. You can also fill out a guest registry card and get added to our email list. And please stay for coffee and conversation in Fellowship Hall after service or in the Zoom room if you are online. At this time, I'd like to ask that you please turn your devices to worship mode, either silent or vibrate. You can see the graphic for help or ask somebody sitting next to you. I have a few notes for today. For in-gathering, we will be tie-dyeing UU shirts again this year. If you would like to request your size in advance, we ask that you please sign up by August 5th, which is a Wednesday, I believe. You can sign up in the foyer or online. You can also see Jesse Laughlin to do that. There will be shirts available even if you don't pre-order. You just may not get your size. We are going to participate in Pekin's Pride for the first time this year. That is Saturday, August 22nd. I need several volunteers for that. So please see me if you are willing to staff our booth at Pekin's Pride on August 22nd. And then we've also got our Haunted Forest coming up in October, which you know is a huge to-do. It is a lot of fun and a lot of work. And we are going to have an organizing planning meeting next Sunday after service. So if you want to be a part of that, please join for that meeting after service or see Jesse Laughlin. And now I invite you to rise in body or spirit for our opening hymn, number 346, Come Sing a Song with Me. And now I'd like to invite Denise Holstein forward for our opening words.
Morning, everyone. The Bright Thread of Hope by Gretchen Haley. There is too much beauty in this world to give up on it. Yet, it is always too soon to surrender to cynicism. Bring your doubt, your skepticism, your downright confusion, even your bitterness. But then in the midst of all these, in the center, wrap your tender fingers around that still bright thread of hope. Feel in your heart that, feel in your heart that still steady hunger for something more, the vision we glimpse every day in the rising sun across the foothills, the light that spreads across the face of the one we love, the look of knowing all there is to know, and still loving life, loving us, just as it is, just as we are. For this hour, we come to celebrate, to praise, to give thanks, to refuse to give up, to steady ourselves, keepers of hope, brave builders of this still possible world. Come, let us worship together.
And now I invite Mary Mahalan Kafer to light our chalice.
We hold the moment in our spirit by Adam Slate, when the great mosaic of humanity is treated with respect and dignity, when no person is threatened by hunger or war, when we have extended hospitality to a stranger and the tent to the sick, with equity and justice reign everywhere, then we shall all be free. We light this flame to hold the moment in our spirit and in our minds until we make it real.
I share these words from Laura McGuire. We take a sacred pause at this point in our service to honor the holy act of giving. For those of us with little to nothing to spare financially, this is a time often ripe with feelings of discomfort and inadequacy. Let us address that in our giving. We give what we have been blessed with a surplus of, ranging from time, energy, and prayers to talents and finances. Sometimes we have all of these to offer the bounty of, and other times only one or another. In certain seasons, we have nothing to offer and are granted the equally important blessing of receiving. No one is more or less beloved because of how much they can give or how much they need to receive. The Hebrew word for this act, tzedakah, is often mistranslated as charity. It is more accurately translated as justice. We give our surplus not out of fear of divine punishment, nor for a transaction of prosperity. We give what we can, when we can, because when we do so, we build a more just world. We receive what we need, how we need it, as we live out our values by releasing our cares into the embrace of our beloved community. Also, in this congregation, we send part of what we receive out into the world when we share the plate. August's Share the Plate recipient is Heart of Illinois Special Recreation Association, or HISRA. HISRA provides quality recreation programs and services to individuals with disabilities and special needs. For more information, you can see their website or their Facebook page. Half of August's undesignated plate offerings will go to them. Please use the envelopes provided in the pews to make your offering and indicate its use. See the QR code in the order of service to make an online donation. During our music for meditation, after the plates have passed, all are invited to come forward and add your own small flame to the others up front. It may be one of love, of hope, of sorrow, of remembrance, or whatever is in your heart. If you are at home, feel free to light your own flame or simply let these candles be for you. These collective flames acknowledge each week that though situations in our lives vary, our shared light provides a beacon to illuminate our path. Will the ushers please come forward? I share this prayer from my colleague, Kara Fortner. Comfort us in our complicated grief, O movement that strives for a loving way. Remind us of our shared humanity, and that we are united with all other living beings on this precious planet on the edge of a galaxy among millions of galaxies. Empower us to love our neighbors and those who curse us. Open our hearts to the healing we need. Open our country's hearts to the healing we need. Open our enemies' hearts to the healing they need. May we be more than our worst thoughts. May we be the radical love we proclaim we are. May we know that love can heal us, all of us, if we act with compassion, if we offer grace. O movement towards love, work through us for a world where the least is not kept down so others may trample on them, where violence is not celebrated and perpetuated through hatred and division. Please, dear God of many names, hear this prayer. Work in our hearts, be on our lips and in our actions. May we be in your loving movement always. Amen. This is the time for the sharing of joys and sorrows of the congregation. We send healing wishes to Judith Corin Shanahan. She had a bad fall last week and had surgery to replace her hip. She's recovering at home while she and her husband, Sean, continue to prepare to move. Thank you for all of the care and support. They still need help with moving boxes and sorting goods. If you can spare some time, contact Judith. Contact Judith. She would really appreciate the help and any phone calls. We also send healing wishes to Jen McDaniel. She's recovering from surgery. She and her family could use some help with meals. There is a meal train link. You can find that in our Facebook connection group. Yes, so we wish her a speedy recovery also. Let us keep all of the names, milestones, joys, and sorrows in our ever-expanding circle of care. Let us share one more moment of quiet. Please breathe with me. Amen, namaste, shalom, and blessed be. Now, I'd like to invite Jessie Laughlin forward for our special time for all ages.
Good morning. We have come to the time of year that holds new beginnings for lots of us. If you attend Peoria Public Schools, your first day of school is 3 sleeps away. Can you believe it? If you're in a neighboring school, maybe you've got a little bit more, some more days or weeks. but summer is starting to wind down. If you're not heading back to school, perhaps this time of year has some other new beginnings in store for you. Maybe the change of seasons will bring something in the next month or so. All of this and plenty more reasons make this a perfect time to think about. And remember that besides all the backpacks and lunch sacks, the work bags and computer bags, the purses and shopping bags that follow us through our days, we also bring our UU faith with us wherever we go. You may have heard us talk about our UU faith in terms of our shared values. Those are 6 values, all centered in love. But some of those values have really long names. And I don't know about you, but sometimes it's hard for me to remember them. So I brought a friend here today to help me. Do you want to meet my friend? Meet my friend? Okay. She knew it. This is more than just a stuffed pig wearing a very fashionable backpack, I might say. This is Jet Pig. Jet Pig is here to remind us of our shared values. Because you see, if you take the first letter of each of our values and arrange them just so, you get the words Jet Pig. Let's try it. J is for justice. Can you say that? Justice. We yearn for and build beloved community. We promise to take apart racism and make our decisions together. E is for equity. Can you say equity? There we go. We raise every person. Oh no, I forgot a key part of Jet Pig here. Sorry. Bear with me. Okay. We've powered Jet Pig up here with justice, and sometimes we use technical difficulties. It's okay. We'll do it. Sometimes we use colors also to help us remember. So, is it working? No? Yay! Here we go. Justice is yellow. Equity, let's power up Jet Pig with some equity. There he goes. We raise every person and promise to be an inclusive community. T is for transformation. Can you say transformation? There we go. Transformation. We value that everything changes, and we promise to evolve, knowing we are never perfect, as I graciously demonstrated. P is for pluralism. Ooh, can you say pluralism? Let's power up Jet Pig with pluralism. We're going to be curious. We promise to learn from one another and love our differences. I is our next one. I is for interdependence. Let's power up with interdependence, and we orient to the web of life. We promise to make the world a better place. And finally, we have G. G is for generosity. Can you say generosity? All right. We give with gratitude and hope. We promise to offer our faith and our resources. Wow. Let's say those values again. See if we can remember them. J is for justice. J is for justice. E is for equity. E is for equity. T is for transformation. T is for transformation. P is for pluralism. I is for interdependence. I is for interdependence. And G is for generosity. G is for generosity. Good job. Well, I hope that Jet Pig can help you remember our 6 values centered in love, and that you can remember that you take those with you wherever you go. So today, Jet Pig brought us a little reminder of that for anyone that would like to have something on their bag. Maybe attach it to your backpack. We'll make sure everybody gets one. You can attach it to your backpack or your purse. You can put it on your keychain. And remember that your light will always shine bright. It has UUCP on one side and Jet Pig on the other to make sure you're rocket powered. There you go. So if you would like to receive a blessing, you can stand up where you are at this time and think about your adventures that you have. You can look around at all of the faces around you, all the people that you know and the people that you don't know, and know that you are loved by them and that they will be with you on your travels, in your car or on the bus, in the hallways, in your classrooms, out in the workplace. Looking for places that they can find peace and sanctuary, striving to be braver, to be more loving, just like you, and they're cheering you on. Memorize this moment and hold it close so you can return to this sense of love and care whenever you would like. Now, let us take a moment together and pray, Spirit of love and life, be with our people as they journey out from us and fill their hearts with courage and strength to live our values and find the love that each is grounded in. Help us tell our truths about who we are and what we see. Help us listen in a way that lets us speak. Help us know that we are loved and we are held by so many invisible strings of love. Now, in just a few moments when the music starts, you can come on down, receive your rocket ship and a small blessing from either Regina or I, and then return to your seats. Okay. If you would like a backpack keychain, or if you hear of somebody who wasn't here today but would like to have one, we have plenty to share. JetPig stocked us up. So just see me and we'll make sure you get your blessing tag. Thank you so much. And remember, wherever you go, you are loved. And wherever you go, you may bring love. I invite the kids and volunteers to join me for religious education.
All right, our guest speaker today is Michelle Blatzheim from Illinois People's Action, and she will be talking to us today about Medicare for All. So please give Michelle a warm welcome.
Hello, and thank you all so much for giving me the time to speak to you today. All right. So yeah, I'm going to speak to you a little bit today about our healthcare system, what's broken about it, and what we can do about it. So this is what our current system looks like. It is private and for-profit, often tied to your job. Has been reformed incrementally over the years. It is fragmented and extremely complicated. So you might get part of your healthcare from your job. You might get part of it from some kind of public program. You might get part from Obamacare, right? There's just all these different pieces that fit together really complexly. It is often extremely wasteful. It's not universal, so that means it doesn't cover everybody. Lots of folks still, even today, don't have health insurance. And it's been in continual crisis for going on a century now, where we just constantly are having problems with our healthcare system. We've tried to reform it, and that has had mixed success. So that's, like I said, this goes back all the way to, say, 1943, when a single payer program was proposed but shot down, in particular by sort of large actors like the American Medical Association and folks who had a lot of interest in not seeing some kind of a single payer program pushed through. In the 60s, we did at least get things like Medicare and Medicaid. So we got, healthcare for the retired, for the young, the sick, the disabled, things like that. This was a great, step forward, but it still left lots of folks uncovered. Kind of fast forward closer to today, and we, have gotten the Affordable Care Act, often called Obamacare, which has certainly helped things. It, made it so that you can no longer be denied for pre-existing conditions, which of course has been extremely important, particularly for chronically ill and disabled folks. But it also still had some weaknesses. So, for example, it was initially going to have a public option, and that got taken out. And folks who are having to buy, directly off of the affordable care markets often face really high prices that they struggle to afford. So, one thing I think that's useful for framing this conversation is to keep in mind that we are the only industrialized nation, developed nation on the face of the planet that doesn't have some kind of single payer or some kind of universal healthcare program, right? Whether that's a program like in the United Kingdom where the government actually owns the hospitals, or something like a government-run insurance system, which is where hospitals remain privately owned, but your insurance is covered by the state rather than private insurers. So we are the only country on the face of the planet or only developed country on the face of the planet that does not have some kind of healthcare guarantee for all of its citizens. So I I'm going to try and make this at least a little bit interactive today. And one of the things that I always like to ask crowds, and if you maybe just raise your hand, is sort of what would you want to see in an improved, a better healthcare system? I see a hand in the back there. Yeah, so I hear everyone gets covered and there's no profit motive. Okay, yeah, yeah. So capping those costs so they're not constantly exploding. Yeah, absolutely. Yes. Yes, no trans exclusions. Yeah, I think we can maybe add just non-discriminatory in general, right? Healthcare that's genuinely for everyone, for sure. Yes, yeah, that's a big one. Prescription drugs in particular, we pay. We're going to get into that here in a second, but we pay more in this country for our prescriptions than again pretty much anywhere else in the developed world. Yeah, absolutely. So we're not saddling doctors, for example, with hundreds of thousands of dollars in student debt, for sure. So can you say that again? Okay, yeah. So what I'm hearing is we are have a very reactive system where people show up sick, but they're not. They show up when they're already in crisis, but they're not getting that just everyday wellness care that might prevent those more significant health crises from happening in the first place. Yeah, for sure. Yep. Yeah. Yep, absolutely. Yeah, those deductibles and copays make things inaccessible, and also some plans just don't cover things like mental health care. One more. Yes, yeah, absolutely. I mean, right now, I think we can probably all have experiences of how complicated and bureaucratic and just sort of tangled kind of web of again all these different things from your private insurance to public programs and all of these that get kind of um, work together into this very complicated, difficult to understand system. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So what your doctor thinks you need is what you need, not what some insurance person wants to pay for. Yeah, absolutely. Yep, 100%. Yeah. Okay, so these are some good ideas. We'll get to kind of what of these are and are not covered in our current sort of plans for Medicare for all here in a second. But first, like, why now? Why fight for this now? Like I said, this is a system that's been struggling for a long time. One of them is just that healthcare costs remain one of voters' top concerns, right? And it's something that affects all of our lives. It causes a huge financial burden for a lot of folks, and it continues to be one of people's most pressing concerns when they're asked in polls. Also, it's gotten a lot more popular, particularly I would say since like 2016 in the Bernie Sanders campaign. So in recent data, about 2/3 of Americans believe that the government is responsible for ensuring that all Americans have some kind of health care, right? And Gallup polls show there's a preference for government run, or that preference for government run healthcare systems is getting higher and higher. So on the sort of blue side of the aisle, Democrat voters tend to already be pretty in favor of this, but it's also getting more popular among Republican voters and more conservative voters as well. just as the crisis of the system gets worse and worse. So, what is Medicare for All, or as we like to call it, improved Medicare for All, because Medicare itself has some issues that need to be worked out. So it's single payer. It's a government program that's financed by our tax dollars. It is universal coverage that would be for every single resident of the United States of America. It's comprehensive. So as we were talking about, it would cover, we like to talk about, sort of head to toe, right? So not just the things that are typically covered by insurance, but also mental health care, which isn't covered by a lot of insurance, dental, eye care, things like that that often aren't covered by our insurance today, despite how much we're paying for it. Something that's important that I think is often a concern for a lot of folks is that your care remains privately delivered, right? So there are some countries, like I said, the UK in particular, where universal health care was achieved by having the government simply take over hospitals, clinics, just the entire healthcare system, right? People often worry about that because they like their doctor. Their problem is generally with the insurer, not with the doctor, right? And they want to be able to stick with their doctor, and they don't particularly want the government kind of getting between them and their doctor. And what Medicare for All does is it does not take over the healthcare system like that. Instead, it replaces the private insurance system. So the government becomes the one insurer for everybody, but you still get to choose, what doctors you want to go to, and that still remains private. So yeah, again, why do we say improved? We want to expand coverage for things like vision, dental, mental health care. We would love to, we were talking about, I heard a couple of times, issues with co-pays, premiums, deductibles. We would love to get rid of those entirely. And there's some difference actually right now in the two different Medicare for All bills in Congress. And that's something we'll get into. But I think one of the things we would really love to see is just no more deductibles, no more co-pays, premiums, things like that. And three, something I think that's really important because this is a problem with Medicare right now, is we don't want private supplemental insurance, right? So what this does, and you can do this right now with Medicare, where you have these private companies. I'm sure any of you who've had Medicare are aware of this. Private companies selling these, I believe it's Part B plans that are kind of add-ons to your Medicare. The problem with this, one, we want to fight for a program that already covers everything you would need to cover. So we don't want to be in a situation where anybody needs to buy extra coverage to get basic things met. And two, we don't want private companies duplicating coverage, because part of what makes a single payer universal system work is that we're all in the same boat together, right? So when you have private insurers offering kind of duplicate coverage on top of a single payer system, you get this situation where the wealthy they can go buy their own insurance, and they're no longer then invested in making sure that the public system is working well, right? Because they have their own private system, so it doesn't matter to them if the public system falls apart. So we want to make sure that we're all in the same boat together, so that we all have the same incentive to make sure that that system is working properly. So this is, like I said, kind of get into, what are the plans right now at the federal level? Sort of what are the bills being proposed? And they are slightly different. So we have a House and a Senate bill that are being proposed right now. Both would cover anybody who's a resident of the United States. The House bill would cover all medically necessary services, including things like long-term care, which is really important for, again, folks with chronic disabilities or chronic illness or disabilities, things like that. And the Senate bill does not actually cover that long-term care right now, so that's something to be aware of. Some difference also with out-of-pocket spending. So the House bill just does away with premiums, deductibles, co-pays, all that stuff altogether. Just gets rid of it all. Whereas the Senate bill would still have some co-pays for some medications and things like that, although it would have a $200 a year maximum. So, better than what we have now, but still we could fight for just no co-pays at all. Both of them take the profit motive out of our healthcare entirely. Both, again, bar private companies from kind of selling these private programs that would double up on what you're already getting through Medicare for All. And there will be slight implementation differences. So the House bill would be implemented over 2 years, whereas the Senate bill would be implemented over 4 years. And kind of the idea would be, year one, you would, folks over 65 are already on Medicare, right? So in year one, you would make that everybody over 55, say, and then you would also raise the younger limit as well. So, right now it's anybody under 18 can potentially qualify. So you would maybe raise that up to like 30, right? And year after year, you would keep expanding this until you get to a point where everybody is covered. So yeah, this is where we are at right now. These are kind of the bills that are in Congress being debated right now. So again, kind of comparing our system as it currently exists to other places in the world. This graph shows you how much we spend per person on healthcare in a year, and as you can see, we spend twice as much as the next country, which would be Denmark here, and of course significantly more than folks in say Japan, France, or the UK are paying. So we are paying significantly more than folks do anywhere else. This is our healthcare expenditures as a percent of GDP. So this is just how much of all the spending that happens in the country in a given year, how much of that is going towards healthcare. We are that line that is way up above everybody else. So again, we are spending way more of our money year after year on healthcare than anybody in anywhere else in the world. So one way to kind of wrap our heads around this is to look at an actual common procedure that many people have to have in their lives and sort of compare how much does that cost here versus somewhere else. So an appendectomy here in the United States can cost you up to $14,000. Again, that's twice as much as the most expensive sort of next country in line, which would be Switzerland, which is about half of that. And then you have places like Australia, Spain, where it's below $4,000. So we're talking significantly less than what we would have to pay for a procedure like that here in the States. So we heard about, the issue of drug prices being so high earlier. But this is just kind of a list of prices for certain drugs compared to Canada, which has a single-payer healthcare system very similar to what's being proposed in Medicare for All. And I think a lot of us probably are aware of this, problem where folks, the price is so different that folks will go to Canada just to get drugs because they can't afford to get them here. And I think, these are all awful, but I think in particular, like EpiPens being nearly 3 times as much here than they are in the United States. And that's something that is necessary. If you need an EpiPen, you need it. You can't, that's not something you can forgo. Abilify, something for depression, a disorder that can really destroy people's lives. $76 in Canada, $1,228 here in the US. So that is just an astronomical difference that really hits us all in the pocketbooks and just makes it difficult for us to get the care we need. So why are these costs so high? So with a for-profit system, you have a lot of money going to executives. You have shareholders, you have executives who expect significant, $1 million+ salaries. You have, again, shareholders who expect to profit from this insurance system. And so that is where a lot of this extra cost goes. We also just don't have mechanisms to control costs, right? So in a single payer system, because we are all negotiating together, because we're all in the same boat, we have a lot more power to negotiate lower costs with providers, right? Because you can either go with us or nobody else, right? You don't have a bunch of different individual private companies that you can pit against each other and bargain with and try and get those prices raised up. So again, yeah, there's just little negotiating power. And there's also a lot of administrative waste and inefficiency. Let's see if it's the next slide. Yeah. So this is one that's always been interesting to me because I think the perception is that, well, government is great at a lot of things, but it's going to be wasteful. It's going to be inefficient. But if we look at Medicare, like right now as it is actually significantly cheaper as far as like overhead, administrative, bureaucratic costs than individual private employer-based plans are. By by quite a bit, right? About 1.8% of overhead costs for Medicare, whereas we're talking, 12 to 20% for other private forms of insurance. And again, so yeah, this is back to the issue of prescription drugs is, the reason that Canada is able to have such cheap drugs is because pharmaceutical companies have to negotiate with the government of Canada, right? They're not negotiating with 10 different individual private companies, right? They're negotiating with the government of Canada that covers all Canadian citizens. If they want to sell their drugs to Canadian citizens, they have to, go through that government. And so that gives them a lot more negotiating power, a lot more leverage to say, hey, this is way too expensive. You need to lower the prices here. So this is always one of the more depressing parts about this is, you would think, given that we are paying more than anybody else in the world for our healthcare, that at the very least we'd at least be getting a benefit out of that we'd at least be getting better care than most other places in the world. And that, unfortunately, is not the case. So this is from a global ranking that ranks about 36 countries on its infant mortality. So that's how many children are dying in childbirth. We rank 32nd. So that is down towards the very bottom of that list. Same with preventable mortality. Our life expectancy in this country is down toward the bottoms of that list. So on basically all of the things that we would care about most, children not dying in childbirth, people not dying early of preventable diseases, people being able to live as long as possible. On all of these things, we are doing significantly worse than, again, literally every other country, just about every other country, at least every other industrialized country. Yeah, this is the one that I think really shocks me the most. Our, maternal mortality rates. So we're looking at, if you look at this graph, it's how many per 100,000 live births end in a death, or the death of the child, right? And we are way above everybody else. And this is just in general, when you start looking at marginalized women, particularly women of color, Black women, this rate gets even worse. We're one of the wealthiest, if not the wealthiest country on the face of the planet. You would think that we could at least take care of the most vulnerable among us and ensure that literal children aren't dying in childbirth. But we are not doing a very good job on that, despite spending quite a bit on our healthcare. So this kind of ties this all together. So this graph is looking at how much do we spend versus how much actual quality care are we getting for those dollars. And as you can see, the United States, if you look here, it's at the sort of bottom right there. So we are way outlier as far as the amount we're spending versus how much actual quality care we're getting for that. So just kind of returning to kind of Medicare for all and why we think it's important to support this is the solution to basically all of these problems is really is some kind of single payer system, right? As we've said, that takes the profit motive out. It gives us all much stronger bargaining power with the pharmaceutical companies, the hospitals, medical device companies, things like that. And it ensures that every single person in this country is insured no matter what, because we still have, I don't think we have this graph on here, unfortunately, but I want to say it's tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of folks are still either uninsured or underinsured in this country. And that's even despite Obamacare. Yeah. Under a single payer system. So it's paid for by taxpayer dollars. So there would likely be some tax increases, although that would then be offset by no longer having to pay copays, deductibles, premiums, all that kind of thing. It would also be really helpful for a lot of businesses, particularly smaller businesses that struggle to afford to buy private insurance for their employees, right? Because it takes that burden off of them. And so they then are no longer spending all that money, and they can use that to invest in more employees, better equipment, whatever it might be to help grow their business. Yeah. So just returning to kind of some of the things we talked about, when I was asking questions earlier, some of the things that came up was we want something that covers everybody. Medicare for All does that. It's universal, it covers everybody in the United States. I heard folks talking about, it needs to be comprehensive. So it needs to cover things like mental health, things like dental, vision that often aren't covered today. And Medicare for All does that. It's portable. So I don't know if anybody brought this up, but it's no longer tied to your job, which makes it a lot easier for folks to leave their job for something better, or maybe to try to start their own business or something like that, when they don't have to worry about, well, if I leave my job, I'm no longer going to have health insurance, and what happens if I get sick, right? So it really frees people up to pursue work that they're passionate about, and again, also to pursue starting their own business if that's something they want to do. It maintains the freedom to choose your own health provider, which is something that folks are often concerned about. And even under the current system, that's pretty dicey because, as folks have probably experienced, if you go from one job to the next and now you have a different insurance plan, your old doctor might not be in your new insurance plan's network, right? So with something like Medicare for All, there's no more worry about that. If you like the doctor you have, you can keep using them. If you meet another doctor that you think you'd like better, you can jump over to them. There's no worry about, is this in network, out of network, any of that stuff. It's all in network. No more medical bankruptcies. This has become, I believe, the number one cause of bankruptcy in the United States is medical debt. So ending that would, and I think in and of itself, would be worthwhile. More effective negotiations. So we lower healthcare costs because, again, it is one government-run insurance system that is negotiating with pharmaceutical companies, hospitals, things like that, which gives them a lot more power to lower those prices and keep them under control. Reduces administrative cost because you're not having to pay, CEOs these really large, $1 million salary packages, and there's also just less incentive to have, an overly large administrative sort of sector for this, right? It encourages us to keep things as affordable as possible. And I think maybe one of the most important things is just it makes it so that our health dollars, the money that we are spending when we receive healthcare, don't go to a for-profit system. That they go into a system that is for everybody and helps keep that system running, rather than making, again, a healthcare CEO a little richer today than they were yesterday. So again, yeah, I'm curious what you guys think about how, what we've discussed compares to some of the things that we talked about wanting earlier. Yeah, that's a real concern. The quick answer, although it's definitely something we could talk about more after this, and I'll be hanging around for coffee hour afterwards. But the quick, simple answer is we would be looking to hire those folks to run this new system. Yeah. And there might also have to be some retraining. And again, part of the system would be hopefully shrinking some excess bureaucratic layers here. And so there might also be some issues with needing to offer folks training to enter other fields if necessary. But again, this program will need plenty of folks to run it. So there will be, hopefully, there should be plenty of jobs created that these people will move into. I think yeah. Correct. Yes, yeah. So they would still be private, Now they're, I would say the system in its totality, right? So those providers plus the insurers plus manufacturers of pharmaceuticals and medical devices and things. The system as a whole would be less profit driven, right? But certainly, right. Correct. Yeah. So that's part of what tamps down on that profit motive, right? Is yes, certainly some of those doctors, therapists, and things are going to be looking to make at least enough that they can survive and keep their practice going. But they will be negotiating now with an insurance sector that itself is no longer profit driven, and that is looking to keep those prices as low as possible while ensuring that the folks providing those services can still provide those services and keep themselves fed and things like that. So I don't have specific numbers off the top of my head, but I can say again, we can look at other countries that have similar programs, and every single one of them spends less per person on healthcare than we do. So yes, they pay more in taxes, but that increase in taxes is pretty dwarfed by what they save from not paying into again premiums, copays, things like that. Yes. Yep. Yeah, absolutely. So I'm not, off the top of my head, I'm not aware of anything in these current bills that are aimed at that problem, but I would absolutely agree. And, we've been doing listening sessions like this throughout Illinois, and this is something that comes up regularly, is we have to tackle the cost of educating healthcare providers because right now you're leaving folks with all this debt that, as you said, then drives them into the specialties that are going to pay them more, not necessarily the specialties that they want to do or that we need more doctors in, for sure. 1 second, I think there was in the back.
So you said the tax will be higher, but they will save more on the money spent on medical services and administrative costs. Who's they?
Us, yeah, us everyday citizens. So, the again, this will be paid through taxes.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Yeah. And I should also say part of this has to be we're also going to have to tax wealthier people more to do this because we don't want this burden to fall on middle class and working class folks. But yeah, yep.
So the money we pay on premiums and on co-pays for things like medications and doctor's visits, that would be like, we won't be paying that, we'll be paying those taxes.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
we're paying less taxes than we are going to do for our own now privately.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So when we look at these other countries, we see that yes, they often pay more in taxes for this, but then they're not paying, these premiums, copays, things like that. And so the way it shakes out, they are actually paying a lot less for their healthcare than we are. They're just doing it through taxes instead of by paying a private company. 1 second, I think there was
universal education. So they have no cost education for college, university. medical school. So that's a problem that I also see with our current setup of the for-profit schools.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, and I definitely think, as with so many of these important issues, this is one of those things that Medicare for all will help, but it does need to be paired with other reforms like making university more affordable. My end.
We have
Okay.
one more time for one more question.
I'll let you choose.
Dave Wyman, David Wessner.
All residents are included. Is that to be contrasted with citizens?
So my understanding is that as these bills are currently written, they would cover undocumented folks, which is something that we would certainly support and want to protect from being removed from these bills. Because I would say certainly at IPA, we believe that everybody deserves healthcare regardless of whether you're a citizen or not. All right. So our question is, are you in? Are you ready to fight for this? So sounds like that's a yes. One thing we do have coming up on the 20th of this month, it's going to be online from 6 to 8 p.m. We are having a candidate forum with Paul Nolly, who's running in the 16th against Darren LaHood, where we're going to be asking him questions about his healthcare policy. Part of how we're going to be doing that is we're going to be sharing our own lived experiences with this system and sort of how it has failed us, and asking him, what would you do to help fix these issues? I'm going to be hanging out for coffee afterwards. If anybody has a healthcare story that they would be interested in sharing with a candidate like Paul Nolly, please do let me know. We're still looking for folks who are kind of willing to share those stories. And that's really important because politicians at their best are moved by these, real lived experiences of this harm, right? More often than they are necessarily wonky, statistics and data and things like that. So yeah, and like I said, I will be hanging out for a little bit afterwards. So please do feel free to come ask me any questions.
All right, now will you please join me in our closing hymn, number 131, Love Will Guide Us. Now I would like to invite Panda forward to extinguish our chalice.
Mindful of Our Highest Aspirations by Rebecca A. Edmondson Lang. Mindful of our highest aspirations, bound by common faith and purpose, and yet beginning with ourselves as we are, let us take one more step together in our unending quest for dignity, justice, and love. Amen.
We have come to the end of our service, but not our calling in the world. We close our time together with the humble reminder that justice and equity are our spiritual practices to embrace. Each day, every day, we are blessed to be the embodiment of what is possible when justice and equity ground us in all that we do. May we go forth with the light and warmth of our chalice in our hearts until we are together again. Our service has ended. Every time, I cannot get that every week. Our worship has ended. Let our service begin.